Hello, everyone. Welcome to Breakfast on the Bay. We're going to get started in just a few minutes. I'm going to let a few people hop on here. Welcome, Haley. Hi, Megan. We're giving folks just a few minutes to hop on and we'll get started here in just a minute. All right, go ahead and get started. Welcome to Breakfast on the Bay, a signature live talk summer series that celebrates the 18 million communities, companies, and conservationists who live, work, and play in the Chesapeake Bay watershed. This year, the Alliance is celebrating our 50th anniversary, 5 decades of convening diverse voices and leveraging resources to implement solutions for clean water in your local streams and rivers, and ultimately reaching the Chesapeake Bay. The Alliance works in 4 program areas: agriculture, forests, green infrastructure, and stewardship and engagement across the 64,000 square mile Chesapeake Bay watershed. We have offices in Annapolis, Maryland, Richmond, Virginia, Washington, D.C., and Lancaster, Pennsylvania. As an organization, we value collaboration. We believe in partnering across sectors and regions to achieve larger collective impact. Inclusivity. We are partners who demonstrate integrity and amplify diverse voices for an equitable impact. And results-driven. We drive with data, promote informed action, and hold ourselves and our partners accountable for measurable impact. In celebration of our 50th anniversary, we are bringing 50 stories to life. Each story features individuals, projects, ideas, places, and partnerships representing 5 decades of restored lands and waters in the Chesapeake Bay. I will share access to these inspiring stories in the chat. If you are joining us from Zoom and have any questions throughout the event, please click the chat button on the bottom of your screen. When the chat box opens, you can select to send your question to all panelists and attendees. Please take a moment now to type in the chat where you're joining us from. If you are joining us from Facebook, you can share your questions in the comment section to the bottom of the screen. Lastly, thank you to our donors who have made this talk possible. Our 50 years of on-the-ground work would not be possible without you. In honor of our 50th anniversary, our generous donors have provided a $25,000 gift to match any donations made to the Alliance this summer. If you'd like to become a donor and double your gift, you can visit allianceforthebay.org/donate. We are thrilled today to welcome Ruby Stemmle from ecoLatinos and Aaron O'Grady, our DC Regional Director. Ruby Stemmle founded ecoLatinos on the values of environmental and social justice with the Latino community. ecoLatinos engages and educates the Chesapeake Bay's Latino community while fostering connections that reinforce stewardship and activism. From organizing trash cleanup events to providing green infrastructure to homeowners, ecoLatinos is a hands-on bilingual resource that brings people together across the watershed. Ruby and Aaron, thanks for joining us. We're happy to have you. You can take over.
Thank you, Lauren. Thank you so much. Thank you for the opportunity to speak to you and to the people in this webinar about ecoLatinos, our work, our approach to engaging the Latino community as equal partners in the conservation efforts of the Chesapeake Bay region. We're very happy to hear and have the opportunity to do this right before we start Hispanic Heritage Month, which starts on September 15. So I believe we chose this date for ecoLatinos to close the series as a sort of an introduction to Hispanic Heritage Month. Next. So next slide, please. My name is Ruby Stemmle. Stemmle because actually I was born Ruby Rosso, but that awkward name was thanks to the man that I married. So I was born in Colombia I've been in the DC area for many years, 21 years, I guess. Since I came to the US, for some reason, all my opportunities to work have been connected to building connections to the Hispanic community. And so I've been the liaison to the Hispanic community for government agencies. I did it for the mayor's office on Latino affairs. I did it for the Prince George's County government, and I did it for the governor of Maryland as a director of the Governor's Commission on Hispanic Affairs. So I've been, always inspired to work with the community, motivated, but also, challenged to do this work, and I have enjoyed it, greatly. I have a passion for conservation and the protection of our Madre Tierra. And that's what inspired me to start ecoLatinos in around 2016. And I did it originally as a consultant, but I started a nonprofit in ecoLatinos in 2018. As a personal note, I love hiking and doing historical tourism, kind of inspired by my husband, who is a history teacher and historic, a freak. I'm a mother of David, who is 23 and goes to the University of Maryland. And I have the little picture there with Luna, my little companion and co-worker. So the mission of ecoLatinos is to empower the Latino community in the pursuit of social and environmental justice through engagement, education, and activism across the Chesapeake Bay region. I firmly believe that we all of us did a little something each week to improve and protect our environment locally. We can go a long way to helping our planet or on a global level. ecoLatinos was started with the idea of helping to encourage and direct this kind of activity in the growing Hispanic community of the Chesapeake Bay region. And next, so we achieve our missions through 3 strategic work streams, and those are outreach, education, and advocacy. And they are strategic because we came up with our board of directors, to do this. Our board of directors have significant experience in grassroots mobilization, education, and building connections with environmental groups. And we believe in our vision, a world where Latinos leave their green footprint in the earth. So our strategic streams include outreach, education, and advocacy. And I'm going to talk about all of them briefly next. Next slide, please. So as outreach is, I think, the main thing that we do. Outreach through connecting organizations, agencies, institutions to the Hispanic community, so they can achieve the goal, their diversity goals, and reach the gap that may somehow prevent them to work with the Hispanic community. And we connect with the Hispanic community, with the members of the Hispanic community. And as community connectors, we meet the community where the community are, established relationship with churches, at community centers. We seek the community where the community is, and we do our programs by bringing those programs to the community. And that's the main, at the core of the outreach we do. And by doing that, programs that have been designed originally to accomplish certain goals of designed to reach the general community, we tailor those programs to make them, accessible and accessible and appropriate for the communities and the community's expectations. We also do education. we in multiple ways, and actually through all the work we do education. We're educating the Latino community and raising awareness on how to become better stewards of the environment. We do this in many different ways, through partnerships with, again, government entities, environmental organizations, coalitions, etc. For example, in this picture, we see Latino students that we invited. They are Latino students from High Point High School, which is a predominantly Hispanic school. And they are running the tent of ecoLatinos at the Festival de Rio. They have been learning about the impact of the stormwater runoff. We trained them on the model, the stormwater runoff model, and they had a great time learning. The best part is when they look at what they learn from us, and then they teach it to the children and families at this event. They take ownership of the program and handle every question with grace and speak with authority, and in the process having a lot of fun, and we are accomplishing the goals. So we meet all our goals in this type of education model. The third stream is advocacy, and we advocate for the environmental needs and concerns of Latinos by building relationships with, again, local governments, businesses, and other environmental stakeholders. We advocate diversity, equity, inclusion, and for diversity, equity, inclusion, and justice. We function like a catalyst for information, and the message goes both ways. We are adept at bringing environmental concerns and direction from institutions to the community, but just as importantly, we reflect and represent the community's environmental concerns to these same institutions. So the way we do our work then is through 4 keys of engagement. That's how we achieve the engagement necessary to fulfill our mission. In reality, the Latino community, there are many challenges in terms of the environmental engagement of Latinos. In the next slides, I'm going to explain how we apply these keys of engagement and at the same time share the work that we do. So the first key of engagement is understand the audience. And we're gonna do a little bit of work on research. The first thing is it was important for us to truly understand the environmental needs and concerns of the Latino community. To achieve this understanding, we studied existing research about how the Latino community engages with environmental issues. But we also took note of how other environmental organizations across the country engage with their local communities. Like, these statistics and data that we're gonna see are important, but we are careful to not neglect to get information firsthand, firsthand by meeting and working with members of the community where they are. So based on that research, we found that according to the Climate Change in the Latino Mind by the Yale Program on Climate Change and Communication, 7 in 10 Latinos, or 71%, have never been contacted by an organization working to reduce global warming. This shows a significant disconnect between the high level of impact, concern, and beliefs that minorities have toward the environment and the fact that they are not being engaged. Environmental organizations continue to struggle to overcome barriers involving and engaging all the members of the community. And The reason for this may be that our communities are either not engaged effectively or not engaged at all. And to bridge this gap, it is important that we be aware of the key barriers to engagement and principles for engagement, for effective engagement. And we'll see that in a later slide. So another thing we found, one reason why it's important to address environmental issues with minorities is because they are disproportionately impacted by environmental harm and neglect. So we all know, by now, I hope that we all know that minorities are more exposed to air pollutants and hazardous land issues, that we all know about the poor quality housing with all heating systems and poor insulation. We know that there is less tree canopy in lower income neighborhoods, and that there is a greater vulnerability to health impacts from climate change. There is more asthma, cancer, COVID, neurological diseases in these communities. Latino children are 40% more likely to die from asthma than non-Latino whites. And globally, climate change is driving human migration and displacement. This is an important factor because the impact of climate change on Hispanic community is largely hidden from our view. Recent waves of immigration from Guatemala and Honduras have been motivated by climate change. The fluctuations in temperature have damaged farmlands and undermined farming communities, making it much more difficult for them to survive. So the other thing is, the other aspect, the other piece of information that we found through research is, and also probably something that many of us, many of you already know, but if not, evidence shows that climate change and the environment are of greater concern to minorities than non-minorities. So inclusion done effectively could be a great asset to environmental organizations. We see here, according to research, that 68% of minority voters polled feel that climate change is an immediate problem to address. Latinos are more concerned with climate change than non-Latinos. Than non-Latinos. And Spanish language Latinos are even more concerned. This is a surprising finding because we tend to assume that if Latinos are not engaged in environmental work, it's because they may not be as concerned. But again, the study that I referred earlier from the Yale Program on Climate Change Communication found that Latinos are more engaged. Environmental issues for Latinos can be as important as the passage of comprehensive immigration reform, according to the Earth Justice Organization. So it is a significant finding. I think that for some it may be surprising. But I think these are important factors that define why we do our work and why it's important that other organizations that are not working with our Latino community, see that there is an asset in the community, that there is a great potential of doing successful work if we engage all members of the community, including Latinos and specifically Spanish-speaking Latinos. Another fact is the importance of the connection of faith and the environment, the connection to the spiritual values of the community. For some of them, taking action is a spiritual obligation. The spiritual values drive their dedication to protecting the environment. In the case of the Catholic Church, the Laudato Si on the care for our common home that was shared with Pope Francis a few years ago. This has sort of been a flagship for some Catholic churches to receive welcome environmental work and to do it with a spiritual commitment and engage their communities that way. It's interesting that Hispanic Catholics, there is a finding that Hispanic Catholics are much more concerned about climate change than white Catholics. Who would have known that? I don't know how to explain that, but that, to me, that was a surprising finding. Okay, next. So moving from data and research, the other thing is, the other key to engagement is meeting people where they are. This means working alongside with the Latino community, building relationships, being sensitive to their culture and finding common ground, adapting to their priorities. We ecoLatinos do that by visiting places that are popular with the Latino community. I found this on the web. Sorry. And we do that, you know, as I was saying, by visiting places that are popular to the Latino community. It is far more effective to work with people where they are comfortable rather than expecting them to come to us. And that has been very effective. One of the ways we do this is, again, going to congregations, going to the community centers, going to the schools, meeting, connecting with the community, going and making the time to do the work when they are available, which is another important factor. So there are a few, and if we move to the next slide, a few ways that this can work, can be done in a successful way. And that is by what I call practicing cultural competence. How do we do this? First, this is part of meeting people where they are, what we do when we do that. We need to acknowledge the differences between individuals when we know the fabric of the community. Programs should recognize and assess participants, the different levels of skill or exposure in different areas, and then engage them appropriately using that awareness. Regarding participants' exposure to nature programs, most anticipate that there will be a wide range of experiences with nature, and that to be effective, the activities should accommodate this range. Building relationships. How do we build the relationships? We can start by deploying community connectors. And by deploying these community connectors means that, not to be afraid of doing this. Some organizations I hear often that are nervous about doing that because they don't know how they are going to connect with the community. Well, I say do it in the most natural way, because we're gonna find that people are just, are welcoming their relationship, are welcoming the opportunity to be part of the work. And it's, let's say, a challenge to build the relationships with the Hispanic community, maybe when don't speak the language. Well, there are many ways in which you can share, you can find share values. And if you don't speak the language, I'm sure that you will find like communicators in the process, people that speak the language that can help you deliver the message. But as long as you are, authentic and you are sincere, building the relationship is not gonna be a challenge. Aligning programs to community priorities is very, very important, because the tendency we have, of course, is a natural thing. We're used to developing programs that work for the structure of the organization and how do we do business. But when it comes to these communities that have been neglected, we may need to align those programs in a way, because they are probably at a disadvantage. So they won't be able to maybe understand or engage with the program unless it's done in a way that the community can capture and that can, that it can feel comfortable participating in the program. So it is very important to do that. Then, once we do that, when we might find that the program we designed wasn't appropriate necessarily. So then we may have to realign the goals of our work to the community needs and to the findings that we did. So, with this process of aligning and realigning. So to do that, we have to be sensitive, the cultural and language, the cultural background and language of the community members, to their socioeconomic status and the level of education. And all will, give us at the end, the ability to build trust and have a successful interaction. So the next key is creating culturally sensitive programs. So, for example, we work with programs that match the needs and priorities of the community. What I've seen when we visit the homes of some of the people in the community is that they are already doing many of the things that benefit the environment. It's so amazing to go in the backyard of the community member that is receiving a free rain barrel and getting there and find that they have a 75-gallon of trash can under the downspout. And they are using buckets to empty the water, and they are watering the gardens that way. And so they are super excited to see that they can have access to a rain barrel, and that is already the system is there, and that there are programs that make them accessible to them. If we don't go and do that and bring it to them, they may never learn that the programs are there. But when we get there, it's very inspiring to see how welcoming these environments are. And I'm going to tell you a small anecdote about doing this. We went recently to installing barrels at this community, at this neighborhood, particularly at a home. And so we plan on meeting some community. We asked people the homeowner to invite some neighbors and bring some people to the event, so we could do a better job at displaying what it means to install, or what it takes to install a rain barrel, and how it works, and plant a few trees. Well, we got there, and there was a tent in the backyard, there was a stove in the backyard, and she had empanadas and horchatas for people to drink. So our installer gets there, and he's so excited. He's like, you know what? This is the best installation I've ever been at. Can we reschedule the next one so we can, be part of this, the cultural experience? So that's what it means to create culturally sensitive programs, where we let and allow people to be themselves and welcome it, welcome it, not, free ourselves from the rigid, schedule, and actually be willing to, okay, let's reschedule the other one. Typically, and I'm sorry to say this, with a typical American has a schedule, and this is the way we're going to do it, and that's it. And we get in the community, well, maybe we can adjust that and make it more enjoyable and more productive, and actually get more of our project, or reach our goals. Next, the other thing is think beyond language barriers. There is the language barrier, absolutely. But then sometimes we don't speak the same language, even we are speaking in English. So that's another thing that, with the Hispanic community may happen even more, because there is a cultural background, and maybe also there are assumptions that make us believe that things are gonna go a certain way and not the other. So I'm gonna share another, story about when we were working at a vaccination drive for the Hispanic community. And by the way, that is part of adapting programs too. And we saw in that slide that picture of us doing vaccine, of our vaccination campaign. We had to adapt our work as everybody did, right? And I mean, I don't need to explain how COVID changed the way we do things. But doing a vaccination drive for the Hispanic community, we hit a few snags, one of which illustrates the problem nicely. The presiding doctor, the pharmacist that was doing the health part of it, we did the outreach. He was required to ask about insurance coverage, even though the vaccination required no insurance, right? So when we demanded, there was a good reason for the government to ask for this, because they apparently don't pay the pharmacy, or pay or not pay the pharmacy depending on whether or not the person has insurance, right? So it is a valid concern for the doctor there, but he didn't know his audience. When he demanded to know people's insurance situation, they immediately became suspicious. Some people actually walked out. It's that if I need to show you my insurance, I'm not going to take the shot. And actually, two ladies, walk out. When we explained his reasons, speaking in a micro language of policy terms that maybe other doctors and a few patients who have dealt with insurance companies might get, but we spoke right past he spoke right past his public. And by following standard procedures of his own office, he spoke to them in a way that created a barrier. So with a little thought, we were able to find a simple solution, having the doctor say, you do not need insurance for the vaccination, but if you have insurance, we will need to know. It was as simple as that. Next, diverse communities have diverse needs. And I love to share, this and how the difference between how the typical American enjoy the environmental, the outdoors, and how the Latino family does it. While the typical American like to go to the park and spend some time with the family, they may go with a couple of hours that it's gonna be there, and we're gonna just walk, and we're gonna go walk this distance and come back and leave. Well, the Latino, when the Latino goes to the park, because Latinos, a lot of them live in apartments. This is an opportunity to gather and celebrate. It's an opportunity to get out of the confinement and meet friends and spend the day out. And so they bring, their trucks with food and games and drinks and, and a barbecue thing and, all of this. And what happens is that they end up spending the entire day at the park. And at the end of the day, there is a lot more trash that was produced during the day. Or there were so many cars that some people parked on the grass. And these behaviors really upset, park administrators. And so they, at the end of the day, park administrators may think that Latinos are just not well educated. They don't know how to use the parks, and we need to do, what can we do to address this? And actually, what we need to do is that we need to structure the system. So when so the new user, and Latinos are not going anywhere, they're here to stay. So the new user, has the ability to use the park in his way based on his culture and conditions, but parks, or the outdoors, facility has the infrastructure to receive that. So there are larger trash cans, larger bathrooms with more showers at the beach parks. So when the Latino family leaves, they don't leave frustration behind, but everybody's happy and the conditions are better for both. And next is, connecting in culture and spirit. I already talked a little bit about that. We do this. This is very important for us. We do this annual and biannual tree. We have a partnership and we work in collaboration with the church. We have 2 months of the river of the Anacostia Trail and river adopted around, the Adelphi Mill. And we go and do community cleanups. And the way we're doing it, we're getting so many people. I mean, this picture here shows one particular group of several groups that divide and go into different parts of the park and do the work. And it's amazing to hear the clinging of bottles and so because of bottles and material, because they don't just limit themselves to walk the trail with the bag, do the 1 hour that maybe the typical American goes to do at the cleanup, right? And pick up trash for the hour and leave at the end of the hour, put things in the right place and get done with it. Well, with these people, we have to pull them out of the woods because they walk into the woods and they want to pick up every single piece of, and I'm talking about moms, that you wonder sometimes, maybe you don't want to go that far, but it's such a commitment and that's, or moms with the stroller, while the other one is picking the trash, it's a family experience, and is very well motivated, and not just in the culture, but sometimes inspired by the congregation that brought them there. So we need to be prepared to find that some in the community may not be able to meet certain requirements. So there are, I talked a little bit about this earlier, like there are programs that are designed for in a way that is assumed that at the end, those who will benefit can meet those conditions to benefit from that, from those programs. And let me be clear, maybe illustrate that with an example. When I was, when I started doing this work, I was a connector for the Chesapeake Bay Trust doing the promoting the community engagement mini grant. And so we went to a community where I knew there was a nonprofit organization, that was meeting regularly and was already doing good work. And I went and to tell them, hey, look, here, this is an opportunity for this mini grant to do environmental work. And they are very excited about it. But what we found is that they have been meeting and they were, established or were operating as a nonprofit, but they had not received the nonprofit status because they didn't know how to. And they had all the documentation. So, well, I connected them with the Chesapeake Legal Alliance, and that actually helped ecoLatinos also get our nonprofit status. And then what happened is before they had that status, they couldn't apply for the mini grant, right? So the idea is that we are supposed to get Latino or minority groups to take advantage of the grant. Well, we might find out that the people in the community don't have the conditions, meeting the conditions, and they didn't have the status yet. So you have to step back and think about where in the process they are and start maybe helping the community, the organization, meet those goals, so meet those standards that have been set, so they can actually participate and benefit from the programs. I have many stories about that, but I think we're reaching our time here. So the number 4 key is continually adjust your engagement approach. And we talked about this in the cultural competence slide. So we need to adjust engagement approach to reflect feedback from the community or the changing societal needs. You know, COVID-19 is a great example of how we have remained flexible in the face of change. We spent much of 2020 experimenting with how to best protect the Latino community from the virus and at the same time remaining true to our mission. So we had to pivot, you know, and we were, our function, our mission is to do environmental work, but we had to pivot like everybody else. But so we did this COVID prevention campaign. We have to, we're now holding, you know, vaccinations. At first we were doing prevention campaign. Now with the vaccine, now we are having, you know, vaccinations. We have applied for certain type of funding, and we with certain environmental program, and we were told recently, for example, that, well, we are going to fund you if you help us with this work. And that's where the need is. If that's where the need is, and that's what is going to help our community, that's what we're going to do, while keeping our, you know, our mission, you know, to be the most important thing, but adapting to the community needs and priorities and the situations we're living. Okay, and a final point that I want to make share with you is so I have shared how ecoLatinos engages with the Latino community, but you know, at the end, every organization has its own set of engagement challenges. And I find that the spectrum of public participation is a good guide that many different types of organizations can use to engage with hard to reach communities. So this spectrum of public participation shows that there are different forms of engagement, that they don't have to be sequential, and that we don't have to do them all. But we can choose what is the type of communication or the type of engagement we want to do. And so there is the most basic level, which is informed, that when it comes to engaging with Latinos, it may be just translating a flyer, or, you know, maybe the type of, you know, activity that we do to inform the community, or putting our website in English, in Spanish, right? So that's a basic form of outreach. But be aware, we need to be aware that it's not that all we're doing is informing. We're not doing engagement there. Then we can do consulting, and, you know, to obtain feedback on analysis or issues. So we're getting feedback from the community when we do, you know, when we do our program, you know, that is another way that we can do the engagement, you know, and it is still valid. We can involve to work with the public to make sure that concerns and aspirations are considered and understood. Or we can collaborate to partner with the public, which means partnering with the public in each aspect of the decision making. Or we can, you know, do as much as work as it takes to empower, which is placing the final decision making in the hands of the public. So I think this is important to understand, because when I recommend people how to, you know, when people ask me how we do the Latino engagement, you know, to work, I'm like, you know, you may have to include all these levels of these types of engagement to be successful, because and I tell you what, the next slide, because by informing, for example, there is a chance that the community is not going to see, you know, the publication or the translation that you did. so you may want to consider moving up in the different levels of engagement and decide which one is the one that you want to, that your program needs to adopt, and what the goal of your engagement is, so you can choose the level of, the spectrum, the form of engagement that you're gonna utilize, so you achieve the goal, that your specific goal. So in the case of informing, we just inform but don't expect engagement. But if we move all the way to empower, you will end up implementing what the community may decide. You are doing every effort, you are putting every effort in place, so you can get, and maybe you may want to just bring it to the level of collaboration, depending on the capacity. But I think it's important to take into account all these levels of engagement before you decide. And when it comes to connecting and working with the Latino community, identify which one is the one you want, and making the effort and putting the resources so you can actually be successful in that engagement. And I think that's all I have for to share today. At the end, our goal should not be to just build a program, but to build a system of healthy relationships. The program's success is its own reward. So that's all I had for you today.
Thank you so much, Ruby. Do you want to hit on Hispanic Heritage Month a little bit while we have time as well? You're on mute. Ruby, are you able to unmute yourself?
Sorry. Yeah, you asked me, and I just have a little bit of information about Hispanic Heritage Month, which was first authorized by Congress in 1968. And it is 30 days to explore and celebrate the many Hispanic cultures that have enriched culture in the United States. And it usually goes from September 15 to October 15. September 15 is the day that Central American countries celebrate their independence from Spain. Mexico celebrates independence on September 16. And, the festivities extend maybe all the way to October 15. This year, every year, the Hispanic Heritage Month has a different theme. And this year, the theme is Esperanza, a celebration of Hispanic heritage and hope. And so there are, you may, I don't have any resources on what events and activities are happening Hispanic Heritage Month in this area, but you may want to check, the website, like locally, the Department of Parks usually has a schedule. And I think that's a good resource, at least in my county, in this part of where I am in Maryland. The MNC PPC usually have a list of all the activities for Hispanic Heritage Month, and I would recommend to go to that website and get information about what activities are available.
Fantastic. Thank you, Ruby. All right, can we stop sharing so we have a chance to just chat with Ruby? Perfect. All right, so again, I just wanted to give a huge thank you to Ruby for giving this
this wonderful presentation. Not only did we get to learn about some statistics going on in our community, but also keys to engagement, different practices for public engagement. And I loved learning about the layers of these promises and engagement, and how the further you go in this plan, the higher the impact you have in the community. I thought that was so wonderful, such a great resource to include. And then also all the great stories. There's nothing like a presentation where you can include all these anecdotes to help people better connect with the teaching. So really appreciated that. Ruby, I do have one question for you, and I was just wondering if, just off the top of your head, you could tell us what are some barriers some people or organizations may face when trying to build trust and engagement in a new community. Unmute yourself.
Yeah, I have my little companion that I introduce sometimes is loud, and so sorry about that. So the barriers. Oh my gosh! I mean, I'm hearing often from organizations, you know, it is important for us to connect with the Hispanic community, but we just don't know where to start. And I think I talk about that throughout the presentation. I think the fear of the language and cultural differences is one aspect that prevents people from taking the step, you know, like, well, we don't have anybody that can speak Spanish, and therefore, you know, we can't do it. Or maybe we don't have the budget. And when they tell me they don't have the budget, I just get on fire because let me tell you something. Everybody has the budget. What we need to be is being intentional about how we set the budget in a way that we invest in doing the specific work to engage, you know, and to reach out to these communities. And I tell you what happened. It's like well, the budget may be $2 million for the organization, but we don't have the budget to do the outreach. Well, you know, rework your budget in a way that you need to. I mean, I think has to be intentionality. If you really want to do the work, oh, we don't have money to hire the staff to do the work. You have money to hire staff. So when you recruit the staff person that you have the budget for, be intentional in having diverse representation and maybe having bilingual people to do the work. So it's more a key about term. It's really recognizing that you have to be intentional, and that you maybe have to modify the way you typically do things. And so not having the budget, but having budget, right? Good budget so many times is more like, you know, just being open to make the changes that will allow you to accomplish, you know, these goals. And I know, and I'm hearing from everybody, we really want to be inclusive. We want to get, but we don't know how to. And like, you know, have you looked at what you have and the resources you have? All you need to do is just shape it, tailor it, like we do, like we were talking earlier, tailor it so you can actually, you know, give yourself the ability to do it with the resources you already have.
I love that. It's like the two foundational items are intentionality, and then the ability to be vulnerable and to start these conversations. Because that's really what a lot of the fear of initiating something is. It's the fear of being vulnerable and not doing well, but you need to pull up the courage and do it with intention.
And I tell you, you may find that like the vulnerabilities are elsewhere, the real vulnerabilities, and that we need to be sensitive to them and actually make sure that our resources also get to like every member of the community.
Great. Thank you, Ruby. I want to ask you a future question. What is next for ecoLatinos? Is there anything exciting coming up that we can learn about?
Okay, well, you know, everything, our work is so exciting. we were pioneers. You know, we were the first local environmental group in the Chesapeake Bay region that started working with the grassroots, and that is exciting. So it is exciting to see that other people are also thinking about it and doing the work. You know, so I'm very proud of that. And you know, at first, you know, you think about it, oh my gosh, I didn't know, you know, but then you're like, it's wonderful because more people can benefit from it. And so I think we came up with a very good idea. We are excited with a very good program. We are excited that, you know, we are working on our fundraising strategy. I'm going to tell you that. And I tell you, and the reason I'm telling you this is because, as I say, ecoLatinos is a young organization. But, you know, I've seen organizations that started about the same time, not doing the same type of work, but other nonprofit organizations that already, you know, have gone farther in terms of like building a team, right? We started doing our work and doing programs, and we didn't spend that much time doing the most important thing as a nonprofit organization, which is building, you know, the resources to do it. And so we've been working with grants, and we're excited now with the grant from the Chesapeake Bay program and the Founders Network that we now are going to start our fundraising strategy, and that is super exciting.
Fantastic. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Awesome. Well, I would like to thank you again, Ruby, for joining us today, for giving this phenomenal presentation, which is now on Facebook, and we'll also have it, I believe, on our website. Lauren, correct me if I'm wrong. But before we close out, I'll pass it back to Lauren to chat a bit more about Breakfast on the Bay. Oh, Lauren, you're on mute.
Gosh, thank you. Taking after Ruby now. No, I just wanted to say thank you, Ruby. This was an incredible presentation. I think that I'm so excited for where you're headed, creating a fundraising plan. I know that that's big endeavors, but I think it's going to be well worth it. I'm really excited for you. Erin, thank you so much for your thoughtful questions. I think that it was just really helpful to engage, learn all of the places where we can take action. And I want to thank our audience for joining us today for Breakfast on the Bay. We'd like to also thank our donors who have made this talk possible. In honor of our 50 years of on-the-ground work, our generous donors have provided a $25,000 gift to match any donation made this summer. Your donation will be matched 1-for-1, so help us double this matching gift so we can continue to restore the lands and waters in the Chesapeake Bay for the next 50 years. If you are interested in other Breakfast on the Bay talks, you can visit our website at allianceforthebay.org/breakfast on the bay to see a full list of our events. We do have one more left, and it's with Turkey Hill, and we'll talk about our clean water partnership. And as the last thing, recording to this webinar will be sent to everyone who registered. So if you'd like to receive the recording, you can check your email. It should be there tomorrow for you. But once again, just want to send a big thank you to Ruby and Erin and Carly in the background for organizing the presentation. This was a fantastic talk.
Thanks, Lauren. Thank you all for joining us.
Thank you so much for having us.
You're welcome. Enjoy the rest of your day.